Oh, I only touched the volume. Okay, I guess I didn't like that. It was like if you press any key, but never known the volume to be counted as a key before. I snapped awake, feeling a strong, nauseating scent of moldiness. Seething silently at another night of broken sleep, I groped for the tent's flap and stepped out in search of some fresh air, letting my eyes sweep the surroundings. There was little comfort beyond the tent either. The heavens were a common weary grey. We had not glimpsed the sun in what felt like ages, and the atmosphere was every bit as stagnant as inside. The caravan still lay in slumber. From somewhere behind the camp came a faint whistling and humming of a rather indecent tune, carried by the all-too-familiar voice of Benji. Casting a glance past the tent, I spotted him returning from the east, with a mock frown etched across his face. One hand of his was brushing his mustache, while the other flicked a small wave in a wordless boast about something he carried. Cheer up, master. Our old neighbour crawls faster than any fine woomer? I don't know. Have you ever seen companions so faithful? I dug this up, but 40 paces from camp, the earth was riddled through with it. Approaching carefully, I pulled on a glove and inspected Benji's find. A revolting sight, the rotten clump of soil was filled with fungal threadlings and was scarcely recognisable as the ground. Hello, Beefy. Good afternoon. How you doing? The forest is already this close, and only yesterday it seemed we had halted far enough away. There was never leisure in our lives. Motion had to be constant. Should one falter, and the forest would catch up to them, spreading, absorbing them, draining what remains of their will and reason. The forest was already at our doorstep. Spores so near could soon be perilous, which meant we had to set out immediately. Yet the Song of Purity dictated that the clan perform a prayer before breaking camp, and I, an apprentice to the prophet, stood before a weighty choice. Oh, conduct the prayer, self immediately. Conduct the prayer, that sounds sensible. Somewhat, maybe. The choice was never truly difficult, it only appeared so. Every ritual we performed was no mere formality. These customs were tempered by ages of suffering and loss. The ancestors' guidance is one of the rare gifts that let us endure, and we shall abide by their instructions. Still, it would be wise not to linger. Benji, help me ruse the others. The prayer must be held without delay. Assemble them all at the fireplace. In a matter of minutes, just over 30, barely awake, discontented faces had gathered in the centre of the camp. Together we prepared to speak the words repeated through countless generations of our ancestors. Purity of flesh, purity of spirit, purity of mind, purity of heart. May the ashes of our forebears shield us from the malice of the united. May the righteous path be light and our journey stretch far. Purity of flesh, purity of spirit, purity of mind, purity of heart. I brought forth the ceremonial urn, which felt chillingly cold in my hands. Taking a pinch of the ash that bound generations, I lifted it above our heads. The wind, as if guided by the spirits of our ancestors, caught the particles and scattered them over my brothers. People raised their hands, receiving the ash with closed eyes and quiet gratitude. When it was all done, I bowed low to those gathered and ordered the departure. I drew near my war mare? Does that say war mare? I don't know. A stubborn and mighty creature with its eyes dull with indifference. Climbing onto its back, I gave the cargo knots one last inspection. Everything was secure and reliable. Okay, continue. Just as the caravan had readied itself for the journey, a figure appeared from the west. It was the chief of our clan and my master, the prophet Gurudon? Older by far than any among us, he had a twisted, desiccated form. His face bore a web of deep wrinkles, and the small patches of exposed skin were a map of scars, strange warts, and old burn marks. His war mare. I'm gonna say that says war mare. I could be wrong, but we're going with it. His war mare itself, long past its prime, carried a load of freshly picked herbs bound into tidy bundles. The prophet's gaze was not on us approaching him, but sought something beyond the camp. I rode forward to speak with him. The mycelium had almost reached beneath our tents. We had to break camp immediately. Prophet turned away and began moving westward, signalling for me and the caravan to follow. Beneath the tents, you say, did you touch it? Goradin regarded me with a piercing, wary gaze. Master, you know full well that I can manage the contagion. Besides, Benji was there with me. Benji also laid hands on the mycelium? In that case, I will examine you both for the first signs and fumigate you with herbs. Seems the forest is pressing harder now, expanding at an ever faster pace. We'll be forced to alter our times of rest again. Master, lately I cannot shake this troubling thought. We cannot keep fleeing the forest forever. Messages from other clans have grown ever rarer, as though our decades are numbered. Perhaps we should seek deeper knowledge of the forest, try to discover its frailties? It was as if the Hey, Ryska! It was as if Goradin. Okay. I've just been saved by a sudden flame. Can you sincerely not see what mechanism we have lost those brothers? Lost those brothers to the forest. Should I have Linda recall for you what made us burn her husband? Was there a single time when we truly needed to be less careful? Took me a few seconds to respond, but Goradin, now visibly darkened, continued. I have far too much to teach you, young one, but this is no good time for lessons. Ahead I heard a horn. We are catching up to another clan. We must prepare for the exchange ritual. Go and inform everyone. By our sacred custom, whenever two caravans cross paths, they exchange unmarried girls. Caravans that neglected this tradition incurred the wrath of our ancestors and were struck with disease and weakness. So some poor lass is gonna get, like, traded off. Fantastic. I learned of this when they took my sister. She was barely 2 cycles old. Around 12 years, and I heard nothing of her since. Our way of life forces us to accept such losses. Longing is dangerous, give in to its temptation, and it robs you of the drive to move forward. We teach our children to focus solely ahead and to embrace what is unavoidable. But that does not make parting any easier. Okay. The other caravan we soon caught up with belonged to the Eilith clan, but the joint halt came only as night approached. Since we had to get as far as we could from the forest, and with the halt came the time for the ritual. Both clans gathered around the central fire, and the prophet of Eilith clan threw 5 bundles of herbs into the flames, 1 for each guild participating in the exchange. With the ashes, a circle was traced around the fire, and the girls began to cross to the other side one after another. I began to speak the words which were taken up by both clans: purity in the journey, purity in the blood, purity in the memory. Having spoken the words, I studied the faces in the crowd. Among the young, one could see a flicker of incomprehension, but with age their expressions grew colder and more detached. Even Benji's eyes were glassy, fixed on some distant height. His whiskers appeared pressed flat beneath the weight of indifference, stripped of their ordinary imagination. Yet the night also had joys to be found. For dinner, along with herb flatbreads and a berry broth, whose flavour had become wearisome, a war mare's trunk was roasted. The clans again gathered around the fire, eating, drinking, and telling unremarkable stories of their dull lives. Then someone brought up the White City, the ancient legend of a place built of pure stone, inhabited by beautiful beings, untouched by the forest's influence. The discussion grew lively, though even the children considered it little more than a tale. Long ago, back when we were traversing the Loxarian Heights, I heard a tale of a prophet who claimed a path to the White City had been revealed to him. He commanded his clan to fell trees from the forest, construct a pot of incredible size, and launch it onto the water. Allegedly, it would carry them to the city. No story like that can simply have a happy ending, right? The lunatic sank almost 100 souls in the accursed sea. They say the sea has ruled ever since, from the blood poured into it, while the spores were feasting upon the dead of the Moorhill clan. Shall we be inspired? Let's be inspired. Gordon dismissed the prophet as a fool, yet I saw a man desperate, wary, ready to seize any chance to break the cycle. I wondered what the people were thinking, trusting the prophet. Surely they knew they would die, yet they gave their lives for the faint hope of securing a peaceful future for the children. I know not whether the White City truly exists, but if it does, why would it lie in the middle of the deadliest waters in the world? One prophet succumbed to the hope of an easy fate, and it drove him mad, dooming everyone he had sought to protect. The prophet of the Ailey clan, only slightly younger than Garden, continued with a small chuckle. In days past, when clans were more numerous, stories of prophets. Madness echoed far and wide, and I swear I would sooner drown than share the fate of most of them. My mouth is going really dry with all this speaking. Okay. This is the end of all motion and striving. No prophet would ever accept it. Yet there was only one fate that we all feared more. They became one with the forest. Thus appeared the first of the cultists. The forest lured them into servitude with the promise of a semblance of existence, while fungus grew beneath their skin and wove into their veins. They murmured praise to the unified until their voices failed entirely. Fantastic. We saw them just 2 weeks ago, rotting, hollow. All that remained of those people was a mangled shell. Seemed they intended to take one of us for some ritual, but we fought them off. The conversations went on till the last remnants of sunlight sank below the horizon, and all brothers dispersed into their tents. Most of them fell asleep in high spirits after the festive dinner, while I faced yet another long and arduous night. Disturbing visions came haunting me with increasing frequency. Occasionally they were of use, but more often they seemed like nothing more than a chaotic succession of events. I could not understand why it was happening to me. That troubled me more than anything. Okay. Ooh. A lot of talking. Fading outline, a man was slowly moving away from my sight. Barely lifting his feet, he walked through a vast emptiness, or perhaps it was a mist, through which I could see nothing but the hunched shape. I swept my hand before me, trying to part the thick haze to grasp the vision, the thread of the vision. My eyes cleared slightly, the image sharpened, and then I saw... I want to get something horrifying. It's more interesting. The forest devouring bodies. It found my people in their sleep. All my brothers and sisters lay before me. I want to go down, like, the darker route, you know? The forest wrapped them in thin, nearly transparent white tendrils. Their bodies were convulsing in uncontrollable movements, like tiny insects caught in a web. They lay stripped of their own thoughts or emotions. Some writhed in pain, others rolled around the ground, and in some, not a trace of humanity remained. And in the midst of it, along a narrow path, walked that hunched man. A massive, weighty cloak on his shoulders obscured him. The figure still eluded my gaze, as if deliberately refusing to be seen. I squinted. It was something else. Not a human. Is this just a vision, or is this... Oh, look at him, he's a cutie. Suddenly it was now right in front of me, a face mangled by fungus. Empty eye sockets, tentacles and extra arms hanging from beneath a massive mushroom cap. It was one of the unified ones. The reek from the grey pustules across its body struck my senses. I froze in terror as it reached a hand toward me. Then a whisper arose from every side at once. Come to us. Yes, okay, so it is just a vision. It's all good. It's all good, guys. The visions are shrouded in mist and uncertainty. I think uncertainty is spelled wrong there. To uncover the true meaning, I have to interpret them as Gurren had taught me. Everything I saw may be a manifestation of one of the three entities: purity, vitality, and malice. I have identified the following elements in the vision. The body is the forest mushroom prophet. Purity. Naturally, visions are sent upon us by the ancestors to keep us walking the path of traditions. Their signs might urge us to perform sacred rituals or warn us of the price for forsaking them. Vitality. Visions ensure the survival of the clan. They guide us to food, show us the way to avoid sickness, and reveal shelters to hide from our foes. For a seer, making out such omens is vital to life itself. Malice. The forest too may weave its deceptions into these visions. I must discern its malicious infusions in time and strip them from the prophecies. Now I must interpret what I saw. Okay, so I've got to do this. The bodies. Forest. Mushroom prophet. Well, let me bring this back. Okay. So I feel the mushroom prophet, is that going to be the malice? Mushroom prophet has to do with malice. The forest. Pure. No, it's not going to be purity, is it? Oh, I don't know. I'm confused. I'm not very good at this. The mushroom prophet has to do with malice. The forest has to do with purity. The borders have to do with vitality. I'm not sure that's right. Okay. I mean, the bodies may be vitality. It's warning against, like, oh, you could die. Be careful. The forest. I'm feeling malice. The mushroom prophet. Can we move this? Yeah. Mushroom prophet purity? Maybe? Oh, I don't know. I'm going with it, though. I don't know if we could, like... I don't know. We're just gonna... I'm probably, like, doomed everyone to die, but... My fallen brothers, I feared that I may have seen a possible future. We must hurry. Time is of the essence now. We cannot afford to linger. The forest is intruding my visions again, but he cannot make me get off the path. Even the forest has its own prophets and seers. It seems that one of them wanted to communicate with me. Something is off. Something is off. Reality poured into me through all my senses at once. It was scarcely a restful dream, yet the first rays of dawn have already shone through the tent walls. Outside, a warm air's drawn out me. Echoed. Someone wanted my attention. Stepping out the tent, I found Gurren waiting. The prophet drew a deep breath, giving me a few moments to get used to the light, then gestured me to follow as he headed toward the edge of the camp. Quickly grabbing my pouch and my cloak, I hurried after my mentor. What's on your mind, boy? Your face shouts that something weighs on you. Master, I'd like to ask for your help. For over a month I have been plagued by heavy dreams, the visions clinging to me even during the day. They present countless nebulous forms, difficult to unravel, yet I sense that something vital is hidden among them. No means exist to restore your peace without taking away your gift. But that you know already, do you wish for me to perform the ritual so you can peer into the essence of your visions? It may be dangerous. Yes, Master. Still all those visions, you told me that only through them do we acquire the knowledge essential for survival. Are frequent visions not a token of the ancestors' favour? We shall perform the ritual today then, and perhaps we get to learn something. Yet be vigilant, my boy, for daytime visions may come as both gift and affliction, and what they show is not always to our benefit. Could the ancestors allow such a thing? Is it not in their hands to decide what we see? The ancestors wrap us in a fog of visions, but only our eyes bear the burden of drawing sense from it. Do not forget, the forest is not merely mushrooms growing behind us, it is sentient. and it'll take pleasure in disrupting our plans. Master, I keep my caution even in common dreams, and the commandments of the song are never absent from my mind. Yet I beg you, help me grasp what it is the ancestors truly wish to say. If the ancestors wished for me to interpret these visions, they would have sent them to me. But set aside thoughts of your nightmares for now. What concerns me more is this. We approached the edge of the camp. A few brothers and sisters stood there, whispering to each other with evident concern. The girl who joined us yesterday appeared especially frightened. On the road forward lay a body, wholly wrapped in mycelium, forming a cocoon that pulsed faintly, digesting its interior. Could it be one of ours? No, all our brothers are safe. This poor soul is a stranger, yet we must still show him some respect before the spores have spread. Grudin had already struck the flint, preparing to light the torch, but I want to inspect the body. I want to go down all the interesting routes. I stopped him with a gesture. Master, wait, this is exceptional. We may gain new insight into the forest. The process seems unfinished and the body appears entirely motionless and not infectious? Not infectious yet. Rodin froze for a moment, either out of astonishment or contemplation of my words. That brief pause was enough for me to seize the initiative. I pulled the scarf over my face and approached the body. Kneeling down, I carefully cut open the upper layer of mycelium. It wielded unwillingly, seeming to die slowly. Clearly the infection was long-standing. Perhaps the poor soul walked the path unaware that he was infected. Or maybe he was cast out so as not to danger his clan. Or this was yet another trap set by the cultists. Beneath the cocoon's outer layer were old faded clothing, an ordinary labourer, no rings, no other marks of belonging to the elders. I carefully turned the body face up, and the neck pulsed two thin sacs. They looked taut and vulnerable. For some reason, they struck me as strangely familiar. Oh yeah, take a closer look. Let's get infected. My mind flipped through the images stored in memory, drawn either from visions or from pages of the Unum? Immortale? I started to sink into a maelstrom of thoughts, drifting ever further from reality. I never even noticed my hand stretching towards the sacks. Back, you fool! He grabbed me abruptly by the shoulder, dragging me back from the corpse. The sacks hissed as they ruptured, sending a plume of spores into the air. Whoa. Tried to rise, but breathing grew increasingly difficult. The last thing I saw was my teacher, mask on, rummaging through his bag on the warm air. Other brothers scattering in panic, covering their faces with scarves and masks. Uh-oh, have I killed everyone? From everywhere came the blending murmur of water. It was hard to tell exactly what it was. Raindrops hitting the earth, waves slapping stones, or the soft trickle of a nearby stream. I just sensed that water was omnipresent. I found myself looking for rivers. Benji always urged me to watch for them in my visions. He believed that if, in a dream, the clan was crossing a river, it was a sign to mate the Warmares. But there was no river. All around, a thick, dense fog concealed everything. To disperse it, I closed my eyes and began reciting the prayer following the Master's teaching. It was purity of flesh, purity of spirit, purity of mind, purity of heart. May the ashes of our forebears shield us from the malice of the ones, and may our path. The prayer was broken by a hiss, dull wet as if slithered into my ears. I knew not how to open my eyes before the prayer ended. Such was the rule. No, not. I knew not to open my eyes before the prayer. Okay. Yet an overwhelming sense pressed upon me that I was losing something of immense importance. Visions are fickle and fragile things. They fade the instant you dare to blink. Open eyes. I had to cling to any scrap of knowledge. Opening my eyes, I knew I was on the ocean floor. All around me stretched dead water, murky and viscous. Nearby were bodies overgrown with marine fungi. They were motionless, long decayed, and still living? Perhaps those were the people from the story Garridin had told, the doomed souls of the cursed sea. But what had brought me here? I took a few heavy steps forwards. Is this definitely a vision or something weird? I don't know. Took a few heavy steps forward, dragging my feet with effort. I stooped, overturning bodies, slippery, covered in some thick fibrous slime. From the eye sockets of some skulls sprouted Clara Captiosa? Luminous fungi unfurling long thin tendrils in every direction, straining toward the light. I knew little about it. The chapters of Unamatao that spoke of such fungi I had not yet translated, but the sheer volume of text written about them suggested they played a significant role in the cultist culture. Suddenly one of the tendrils jerked violently, striking me squarely on the cheek. Sharp burning pain shot through my entire face like a searing needle. Before me? The corpse that had struck me rose up, and I saw it to be the prophet of the Morhol clan. In that very moment, the vision vanished. Okay. Oh, I'm not good at interpreting this. The corpses, the water. Okay, well, that's gotta be malice. Water, I'm gonna say vitality. Corpses, purity, I don't know. Corpses, putting them there. Oh. Okay, I'm putting them there. The corpses are the sign of what will happen to clans undisturbed with following traditions. As a poor man on the road, they will never get to meet up with the ancestors. The murmur of the tiny brook had always been a sign of fertility. Here, however, I beheld an endless sea. Clara Captiosa. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. The bait that the forest uses to lead the seers astray from the path. I will not succumb. Something is off. I woke up in my tent. Beside me sat Benji, smiling as usual, settled into his habitual pose. Tried to rise, but a sharp pain pierced my head. Quietly groaning, I sank back into the furs. Well, looks like you've been hit hard this time, Master. Think your head's gonna hold up? Benji, please stop calling me that. I haven't even earned the 3rd ring yet, and apparently it'll be a long time before I do. I know, and yet, my friend, you'll always be a master to me. Is the prophet grown impatient? What about Garden? He promised to perform the ritual for me. Don't you worry, Garden still has an hour of prayers to perform for all who might have caught spores from that filth on the road. I felt uneasy. It was precisely such carelessness that Garden has warned me about. Today my mistake could have doomed both me and one of my brothers. Benji knew it, yet he still smiled at me, just as warmly as before. We stand, Benji. The visions were slipping out of control, and the urge to understand their cause tormented me. Moreover, with each new vision, the number of questions only seemed to grow. Daylight visions unsettle me. I've hardly seen any mentions of visions occurring beyond the realm of sleep. Here I'm no guide for you, Master. Garden's the true prophet, you should ask him. As for me, I'd say as long as your hands haven't broken out in grey blisters, you're probably fine. I let out a quiet sigh. That's not it. You must remember the story. You'd already marked your 3rd cycle when Charlie, a girl promised to the Middlemore clan, ran off into the forest a day before the exchange, right? I do remember. She was a lively, carefree girl. When they didn't find her in her family tent, the whole camp erupted in chaos. And I'd never have believed she ran off on her own if we had not found the tracks. You've no idea how many times Garden told me what the song has to say about it. But what does this have to do with your visions? Memories are hazy. I was just a child then, not even through my 1st circle. I remember us playing close to her parents' tent, hugging a warm air by the ears. Tugging, even. When suddenly she went pale and collapsed with her eyes wide open, then she got up, shook herself, and said she was being called, that she had to leave. I didn't understand at the time, but now the pieces fit together. Benji stroked his mustache thoughtfully. Vision at that age, and in broad daylight from a carefree girl with no shock to trigger it. Don't take it the wrong way, Master, but I think you've just seen patterns where there aren't any. Sounds far too improbable. Perhaps you're right, but I can't shake this unease. Alright then, Master. I better get going. My little darling has probably been waiting ages for her walk. He stood, shook out his tunic and left the tent. I remained alone, left with my thoughts. I pondered at Gurdon's words that we might be dealing with a curse. Maybe these visions began to trouble me because I was studying the Unum Immortal. Reading the writings of the cultists would clearly not have pleased the ancestors. Some of them would have even considered me tainted. But surely they know I only want to use my understanding of the forest solely to oppose it. What if, like, is the forest slowly taking over the world? Like, eventually there'll be nowhere to run, right? Could the book itself be inherently dangerous? Perhaps it's smeared with something, or the very ink is made from poisonous mushrooms. Still, even if that were true, it's far too late to undo anything. I realised it only now. On the other hand, the visions have only grown more frequent recently, while I began translating it months ago. Also, can they boat across? Maybe the forest can't follow them. Rescue ocean, just like boat to a little island. I don't think that would work. If there's like mushrooms in the ocean, then... The puzzle simply won't come together. Something was amiss. My thoughts started to scatter just when I needed to focus. After a while of pondering, I sat down to catch my breath and took a sip of the berry tincture. Didn't matter whether the book had triggered this or something else. The chance to change the fate of my clan was right in front of me. Everything in my visions pointed unmistakably towards the White City. It was time to get my answers. It was time to seek out Gurdon. Yet the closer I drew to the Prophet's tent, the more doubt and anxiety grew on me. Something within me hinted that I would not emerge from the ritual the same person. I took the final step inside. Runes were already inscribed on the rocky ground. The scent of various herbs pierced my nose like an arrow, seeping straight into my mind and making it spin. I barely kept my footing. In the centre stood the ceremonial urn, adorned with the faces of the clan's 4 founders. A faint glow emanated from it. Perhaps it was only a reflection of the polished metal in the smoky room, or perhaps a subtle smile from the ancestors aiding the ritual. The traditions dictated, he who in the rituals seek to partake, that the purity of his flesh be revealed, his body must bear. He who in the ritual seeks to partake, that unblemished nature of his spirit be proclaimed, a pinch of dust must breathe in. He who in the ritual seek to partake, that the clarity of his mind be shown, a prayer must utter, and his master for aid must entreat. He who in the ritual seeks to partake, that the innocence of his heart be proven, a drop of his blood upon the earth he must let fall. It obeyed the song without question. Meanwhile, the herbs had already lifted my lungs to the brim. Every fibre of my senses was taut with tension. I could see every ant crawling across the ground, hear the whispers from neighbouring tents, yet I strove to pay them no mind. I stretched my bleeding hand to the Prophet. He dusted the gash with powder. A sharp, stabbing pain radiated through my wrist, yet the blood began to clot swiftly. Clenching my hand into a fist, I spoke, "I am ready, master," and closed my eyes. Scarlet shapes veined with black danced behind my eyelids, and the shades of the forebears flickered between the walls of the tent, their voices low, whispering, conferring. The Prophet's already imposing figure seemed to swell even further. Half dazed, I thought Gurdon bore the arms, one sketching runes in the air. Oh, 3 arms, not the arms. One sketching runes in the air, one driving forth the incense haze, and a third spectral limb reaching for the ancestors themselves. Something was burning, something knocking, something hissing. Mist began to fill the space around me. The vision seeped into my reality, blurring the tent and Gurdon from sight. I found myself in a vast hall constructed entirely of white stone. The vaulted ceiling soared beyond my ability to perceive while light poured in through the immense translucent stones of varying hues, filling the hall with a surreal radiance. I walked a few steps to shake off the drowsiness and approached the massive columns that stretched high into the mist. I had seen similar pillars in the ruins of sanctuaries, where we celebrated the new cycles, yet those were far smaller and far from white-lined with cracks and most scars, and the scars left by repeated invasions of the mushroom forest. Hearing a crack, I turned round. Several mysterious figures stood before me. The tallest leaned toward me, offering a hand, and spoke. "Come to us, we will guide you, child." "You want the crack?" "Oh, okay, here you go. Here you go." I closed my eyes and quickly recited the lines of the prayer. Purity of flesh, purity of spirit, purity of mind, purity of heart. Yet the figures did not vanish. They waited patiently, as if expecting a response from me. Convinced this was no mere illusion, I extended my hand in return. "Yeah, you like the budget vamp? Thank you. This is what you get with no, like, preparation or warning." The tall figure led me forward, speaking in a soft feminine voice, like a lullaby. We walked through the long white halls, adorned with intricate patterns and elaborate stone sculptures. "Do you, child, not wish to live as the ancestors once did, before the world took the shape you know? To dwell in eternal stone homes like this, to tend the plants with your own hands, year after year reap the fruits from the same vine?" I thought that said wine. I was like, oh, I'm okay reaping fruits of wine. To live in a world where people are not divided into clans but all exist together in unity. I mean, that does sound kind of nice, but also I'm not okay with mushroom zombies. I nodded, my voice lost to awe and wonder. "Then walk this path with us, so that your brothers may follow in your footsteps. I will reveal to you the transformations you so desperately seek." Then we found ourselves in a vast hall, at the centre of which was a massive ring of stone. Its outer surface was covered in unfamiliar runes, while inside water rippled gently. The elder figure raised a hand, and above the ring appeared a large sphere, reflecting the entire world in far greater detail than any of our maps. On this sphere, a line of light began tracing a path. I recognised its starting point. We had just recently passed through it. But then the line ended abruptly. I was unable to speak a word, and could only point to the spot, striving to draw attention of the figures. One of them took my hand and traced the path along the sphere, with my finger prolonging the line. A glowing trail lingered where my finger had passed. Suddenly a thunderous crack resounded. The structure splintered like ice, and mist began seeping through the fissures. The figures began to blur and dissolve before my eyes, as if scattered by someone unseen. No, I still hadn't glimpsed where we were meant to go. A sensation gripped me, as if some hand had seized my throat and was dragging me into the fog. I could struggle against it or yield and see where it might lead me. Now we're giving in. Visions are the domain of the ancestors. Whatever their will, I had no choice but to submit. I surrendered to the overwhelming pull and was swept into a whirlwind of raw emotion, despair and pain, an excruciating skin-tearing agony. Panic were consuming me from head to toe. The harrowing sense I'd failed someone. No, not just someone, everyone. All those who placed their trust in me. Oh, yes, perfect. We have this to look forward to. Suddenly breaking free from the whirlpool, I found myself atop a mountain. Clouds swirled around me, and within one of them, I recognized a face emerging from an urn, one of the founders of the clan. "After all these years, I welcome you among us, old friend. I mourn for your young apprentice, for he now needs your guidance more than ever. And yet I am glad that I can speak to you directly, Garridan." 10 Stream Street, let's go! In double figures. Again. After I was slacking. Garridan is my master here as well. Could it be that even in death, my eyes have deceived me? Huge. I watched Garridan lay down his life to pull you from the ritual vision, and still before me, it is you, not him. Or have you truly arrived here by sheer chance? What? Master? But why? Why would he have to close my eyes? Is he really so afraid of the future? Wait, lay down his life? Is Garridan dead? This cannot be. My son, your path is fraught with great trials, and the loss of Garridan will strike not only you, but all who follow these ways. Your journey will take you through familiar trails and into uncharted lands, through places untouched by corruption and through realms long swallowed by the forest. Along this path, no one will stand as your support but yourself. Well, this sounds pretty exciting. But go now, Adept. It's time for you to return to reality. Walk your path. One day it will lead you to that which your heart longs for, to the place where after your passing, all the birds of the world will gather to mourn you. May your path be righteous and light, and your journey long. Those words hit me like a plunge into icy water. Not a single answer was given to my questions. A sharp pain coursed through me, accompanied by an unbearable thirst to act. I wanted to ask a question, yet my lips remained sealed. I longed to see, yet my eyelids refused to part. Okay, vision, interpretation. Oh, we got a lot here. Okay. The cracks. The ancestor, the prophet, path. Oh, I don't know. Like, purity? Cracks, malice, maybe. The path. I don't know. I'm going with this. I don't, like, fully understand this. I don't think it matters too much. I think it's kind of how you interpret it. And then I think, like, you get a different result depending on... Like, this is a kind of, like, choose your own story type game, and I think this kind of, like, tells you where you're gonna go. A malevolent force shattered my vision, denying me the answers to the questions that tormented my soul. To meet an ancestor in person is an immense honour. I'm truly grateful to have earned their patronage. Garridan sacrificed himself so that I could meet with the ancestors in person. It's hard to imagine a person more devoted to tradition than he was. It is no coincidence that this path filled with trials has fallen to me. Garridan prepared me for this my entire life. Every lesson, every challenge he presented was a step towards this moment. I didn't realise that Garridan had actually died. I thought it was just a vision of him dying. Now I'm slightly sad, but something is off. Yeah. When I opened my eyes, I saw the prophet lying on the ground. Blood dripped from his mouth as he coughed, each spasm harsher than the last. The air no longer emitted its faint glow, and the wind carried the smell of herbs out of the tent. I wonder if we interpreted it differently, he would have not died. It was all a mistake. We never should have. The cough tore through his words. He was choking, struggling to breathe, yet he pressed on. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Master, I rushed to Garridan, trying to lift him to his feet. It might have been my fault he died. I'm not entirely sure. He rasped painfully in response, his blooded eyes wide with agony. I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand what was killing him. Me, apparently. I dashed to the table in search of a remedy, but no bright elixirs were there. And brewing a new potion would take hours. Not a single damn thing here could save the prophet. I was powerless. Another harsh, rattling gasp, and then silence. With trembling hands, I searched for a heartbeat. Garridan was gone, but I could not accept it. I closed his pale eyes, but I wasn't ready to bid farewell to my master. Almost a father. In a surge of anger, I hurled all the vials from the table to the ground. Damn it. It couldn't end like this. I won't give up. I have to do something. Master, you cannot leave like this. This ritual has only made everything more complicated. Now there was no one left to help me. I couldn't perform the new ritual alone, and no other prophet would ever agree to attempt it. Uh-oh. I clenched my fists. Memories from my recent vision slowly surfaced from the depth of my mind, weaving together into a single sensible chain. Before my eyes, a memory from a vision unfolded once more, countless corpses drifting in the water, each sprouting Clara Captiosa. It's them that received the prophet of the Molehill clan, compelled him to rise. And that revived. I could not continue this journey without Garridan. I was willing to pay any price to bring him back. Oh no. I was about to commit an unspeakable crime against tradition, yet for the first time since the beginning of my path as a prophet, I was seized by a strange yet resolute certainty in my actions. Are we gonna, like, perform some necromancy? I sat quietly at the tent, firmly drawing the coarse fabric behind me. No one would dare disturb a prophet during a ritual. The night shrouded the camp, and I glided between the tents, careful to draw no attention. Inside my tent, I found it, Unum Immortal, and began flipping through the pages, searching for some passage. There it was, Clara Captiosa. I unfurled a few of my older notes, rolled tightly in leather scrolls, and began to read, drawing meaning from the lines in the parched pages, finally grasping what had once seemed nothing more than the religious drivel of fanatics. The translation came to me far more swiftly than usual, as if the words themselves had agreed to reveal their meaning. Clara Captiosa, the mushrooms from which everything begins and to which everything returns. In the cult, they were used to resurrect the dead. Resurrection's never a good idea. Fresh spores could restore consciousness to those who had already departed. Not permanently, but for a little while. They could remain themselves. Infection always claimed its due, their bodies and minds decaying. How the cultists themselves remained human was a mystery I could only speculate upon. Garridan, when I was still a child, used to say that all that is alive today is merely the consequence of mutation brought by the forest. It had penetrated the very essence of existence. One way or another, every living thing bore a fragment of it. Even the misty grass we used to enhance visions was nothing more than a hybrid of plants and fungi, which is why proper preparation before consumption was so crucial. Therefore, if I could obtain the spores of Clara Captiosa and extract their essence, there was a chance to bring the prophet back to life, a chance to persuade him to complete the ritual and reveal the path to the White City. I was certain that my ancestors would have understood me. Not entirely sure about that. I wrapped a scarf around my face tightly to guard against the spores. Flung my sword at my waist, donned my gloves, and tossed the book into my pouch. Time pressed and I had to act swiftly. Outside, night still held sway, the faint moonlight barely lighting the path. A few dozed by the campfire, no one paying any mind to my departure. I drew a deep breath and stepped into the darkness, into the place where the light ends and the forest begins. Ooh, this is a bad idea. The further I walked, the harder each step became. The ground beneath my feet grew increasingly damp, squelching as if it were groaning. The forest knew I was on my way. Amid the darkness, fleshy growths began to emerge, strange fruits that quivered on their own, as if moved by the will of something invisible. I stepped cautiously, knowing that any sudden movement could awaken the forest denizens. The bodies of humans and animals appeared all around. Some had long since rotted, cloaked in tiny mushrooms. Others were nearly fresh, thin tendrils reaching for them, coiling, drawing them in, feeding on their flesh. The air thickened, becoming viscous like pitch. The spores in the air stung my eyes and skin, provoking an unbearable itch. Thousands of needle-like growths surrounded me, but I had no choice but to push through them deeper into the forest. Worst of all was the darkness. Seeing anything beyond the length of my outstretched arm was nearly impossible. Every step felt like a gamble with fate. Would I stumble into the vile corpse-filled swamp, or press upon a nerve that might awaken the United? About 20 minutes later, I emerged into a clearing, encircled by the twisting roots of fungal trees. According to Unum Immortal, these trees served as the forest circulatory system. Fluids from the pools were transported through the roots to areas where the forest lacked moisture. The upper fruits of the fungi absorbed all the light, forming a kind of canopy that maintained the coolness and dampness of the lower levels. It was slightly brighter here. Along the roots, fireflies pulsed, flickering through the slime. I stepped closer to examine one. Slow, like pale drops of blood, they were breathing. A chill of revulsion sank into my stomach. I recoiled, and something crunched beneath my foot. My heart skipped a beat. I froze. The forest stood still with me, not a single sound. I couldn't even hear my own breathing, as if someone had ripped out my ears and left only the deathly silence. I began to look around slowly. Through the torn gaps between the roots from the viscous darkness, distorted figures slithered towards me. Their movements could not possibly exist in nature. Their bodies bent as if devoid of bones, yet the creatures maintained their shape and stood firmly on their feet. They trembled, convulsed, as if in an endless seizure, but did not utter a single sound. As they came closer, I drew my sword. My heart pounded in my throat, cutting off my breath. I waited for the attack, but they did not move hastily. They simply stood, watching me, their faces pale, as if smeared with ash. In the depths of their eye sockets gleamed a dim light, like the cold gaze of a predator. Where their mouths should have been, swollen masses of flesh protruded, bristling with teeth, as if their jaws had been turned inside out. Lovely. Their fingers clawed, swollen, covered with pale blisters. From their backs sprouted entire clusters of fungi. They pulsed and writhed, releasing clouds of spores with every movement. Yeah, let's attack them. They're slow and weak, it's good. Ancestors, aid me, I whispered, and the blade in my hand held its breath with me. I lunged forward, trying to seize the initiative, but before I could, the creatures sprang into motion with startling ease. With a repulsive watery plop like frogs, they leapt back and vanished behind a cloud of spores. A murky haze rose into the air. Something suddenly tore free from the roots behind me. I felt the air shift, and without a second thought, I spun, swinging my sword. The tip of the blade grazed flesh, and the creature rasped, twisting and constricting around the wound. It stumbled back several steps with a heavy, gurgling sound, looking eyes with me. The silent standoff lasted only for a moment, yet it felt eternal. Then, without averting its eyes, the creature slowly dissolved back into the roots. I stood tense, feeling my heart thudding dully in my chest. All had fallen silent, but the spores hung again in the air, like ash after a fire. Breathing heavily, I scanned my surroundings for new threats. Wiping my blade on a dead rag at my feet, I turned and pressed onward, deeper into the forest, navigating by the signs described as Unum and Mortel. Okay. Soon I reached a cliff. The path ahead was blocked by a slippery root, thick with mycelium, impossible to cross. Carefully I climbed onto a stone, mindful not to slip on the slimy surface, and then I saw a clearing. Bright, silent, and naturally pristine, it gleamed like a rare gem, filled with Clara captiosa mushrooms. They were far larger than I expected. Reading about them, I thought I'd pluck a few, tuck them in my bag and leave, but now, standing here, I realised there was no way I could carry a whole mushroom. I paused to consider my next move. I'd pluck a bit off. The mushroom's glow was faint, as if emanating from within. Thin thread-like tendrils wove above the clearing in a delicate, suspended lace. The air around felt weightless. One step and it seemed I might simply drift or hang suspended, forever becoming a firefly in this place, long forgotten by the ancestors. I longed for them, to touch, to embrace, to merge, to dissolve. I caught myself taking a step and jerked back sharply. I closed my eyes and turned away. Something was wrong. They were inside my head, scratching, whispering. These thoughts were not my own. The clearing's enchantment toyed with my perception of reality. Foul corruption. I needed only their spores, just gather them and leave, while I still could. I circled the route and found a descent. I stepped into the clearing and instantly sank knee-deep into the viscous muck. Mycelium and tendrils wrapped around my legs, pulling, clinging. Each step was a struggle, as if I were wading through living flesh, desperately grasping at me like a last hope. Slime moves beneath my boots. Nausea began to rise. Hey, Revered Wolf, how you doing? Welcome in. Reaching one of the mushrooms, I opened the book. The spores were near the roots, contained in sacs. I sliced onto a pulsing, almost translucent appendage and felt something rounded inside, slipping my hand in. The mushroom coiled at my touch, and I felt its body tremble as if in pain. I pulled out the sac, dense like a butterfly's cocoon, veined with something that resembled blood vessels, covered in tiny hairs that, like their larger siblings, glowed faintly in the dark. I shook off the slime. A sharp pain shot through my hand, burning like nettles, but deeper. The slime had likely slipped through my gloves. Damn it. I needed to be more careful. Could Clara be transmitted through the skin? I think not, only through blood or the eyes, but I had no desire to find out firsthand. I took the sack into my pouch and turned. My legs carried me forward of their own accord. Yet along the paths I had recently travelled, something had changed. The forest was no longer the same. The routes had shifted, familiar landmarks vanished. It seemed as though it was trying to confuse me, to trap me, pressing me close like moss against a stone. Yet along the way I encountered no creatures, and I made my way westward, steadily approaching the edge. The forest watched me go. I could feel it in every fibre of my being, yet it was letting me go. Why? Crossing its borders, I saw that dawn was breaking. I untied my scarf, and for the first time in a long while, breathed freely. The sky, though shrouded in a grey veil, seemed the sunniest and brightest I'd ever seen. The camp lay far ahead, yet in the same place from which I had emerged hours before. It restored a sense of certainty. The forest had advanced overnight, but it had not yet consumed everything. Thank you, Necron. Oh, this is a lot of talking. My mouth is going super dry.
Let's shake bitties, let's shake those bitties, let's shake all the bitties, let's shake bitties.
Oh.
Thank you guys so much for shaking all the bitties, let's shake bitties, let's shake them, let's shake all the bitties, let's shake bitties. I love you guys, thank you guys for coming and shake bitties.
Shall we leave this one here for the time being? My mouth is going so dry. And I don't know how long the demo would be for this. So